わごとはそれまでだ。予言を覚えているか。ポラリスの刃は3度きらめく。その時が。
Hey yo, how's it going everyone? Entropy here, today with another video. Today we're going to be doing one last deck profile for this set, and that will be Great Nature. Great Nature is very great. A proper video this time around. All jokes aside, I hope you guys got a laugh out of it. It was a really fun video to make. I personally, when I was beginner at this game at zero, I got really irked about these clickbait titles and how some people don't really do a lot of testing or just assume things and make things up, and I think that really hurts a lot of players, misguide them, and it's overall a bad attitude to just always say that the opponent's cheating, hacking, you're high rolling, or you're low rolling, your opponent's high rolling, bad luck, all these kinds of stuff. Yes, it comes into play. Yes, it is prevalent, and this is something that game studios should take some time to fix. But overall, the first thing that comes to mind with any problem is your attitude. And as people who needs to deal with things, we should all just chill and think of ways to circumvent it, right? And so I guess the point of this channel is to explain the nitty-gritty of the strategies, the tactics that are in play, rather than just blaming high roll or low roll or luck in general. You can see that when you make plays, there are many things that you can consider and many things that can lead to a win or loss scenario. And if we can maximize these opportunities and minimize the losses, then we can all play better and have a better experience, Anyways, I guess right now we should go back to the deck profile, talk about the Great Nature. So let's look at the deck overall. I think this is a pretty standard list. Some things I will explain while I go through it. We're going to play the Blackboard Parrot. Its skill is Forerunner. When rolled upon, move it to the rearguard circle, and then you can put this into soul to have one of your rearguards gain the skill when retired at your end phase, draw one card. So this is definitely a great way to just trade the 5k booster for an extra draw card, and you have a lot of retire skills as a cost anyways, so you're trying to negate or mitigate the cost as much as possible and at least get an extra card out of it. We have 4 coiling duckbills. You can get this in the tournament shop, as you can see from this art. This is a promo, or from rolling the gacha. Coiling duckbill is an amazing card. It does the same thing as the parrot, except it's on place. It doesn't need to go into soul. So definitely on place, when a unit retired, draw 1. Very, very strong. 4 PGs, Cable Sheep. Of course, this is the only PG that you can play so far, so we definitely want to play that. 4 Pencil Squire Hamusuke. Hamusuke's skill is when retired during the F phase, you can add 2 Pencil Squire Hamusukes from your deck to your hand. This way, in the early game, when you have the Hamusukes, you can retire it with skills like Monoculous Tiger. When this unit attacks, you may have one of your rearguards get +4, which is the Great Nature number, until end of turn, and at the end of the turn, retire that unit. And this way, you can, for example, put a Hamusuke, give it +4,000, get it over the number to hit twice, and then you can set up your duckbills, you can set up your parrots, and that way, not only will you filter your deck through drawing 2 Hamusukes, but you will actually draw extra cards out of it. Definitely very, very strong. For the grade 2 slot, we play 4 Binoculous Tigers, the same thing as the grade 1 Tiger here. On attack, +4 at the end of turn, retire that unit. The grade 2 one we play more of because the grade 1 slot is really, really crowded. We know that there are cards that some players play, which are really good. Personally, I just value these Duckbill and Hamusuke and PGs over other cards, but we'll talk about the alternatives later. The grade 1 slot just doesn't have enough space for the other cards and enough space for any more tigers. The grade 2 slot 4 tigers helps you hit the numbers, +4 helps, definitely helps hit numbers. We play 4 of the grade 2 pencil knight Hamusuke, a rare option I'd say, but because we are playing Polaris and Leopold especially helping you return it to the field after you retire it, you can still maintain that intercept on your board while drawing 2 more intercepts for your next turn play to stall out the game and ensure that you have the pieces or the late game winning image to seal the game off with Leopold. And then we have 4 Melodica cats. Of course, we're not playing Recorder Dog because the grade 1 slot is so tight, but primarily we're playing the Melodica cat because of the Vocal Chicken. And lastly, Lamb Camel at 1. Lamb Camel lets you get that Caramelast to draw 1, and Great Nature seems like it requires a lot of Caramelast with Leopold, with Polaris, with Chicken, but honestly these are Caramelast 1s, and they don't accumulate too much over time. You know, there are only so many times you would use Leopold's Limit Break, there's only so many times you would use Polaris's Limit Break, and so the Caramelast to draw 1 definitely does help your early game to get your pieces together and help you gain that momentum. And also you'll see that there's a lot of deck filter with the Hamuskes, but not a lot of skills to help you actually draw into your key cards like grade 3s or your PGs. And so the Lamb Camel definitely helps you do that 1 extra draw to maybe draw into that 1 extra PG that you do need. For the grade 3 slot, we play 4 Chicken. When on retire at the end phase, you can Caramelast 1, call a Melodica cat from your deck to your field. And this way you can obviously use Polaris, restand Vocal Chicken. Vocal Chicken attacks for 14 again. Maybe more buffs with the tigers and stuff, 18, 22 maybe. And then at the end of turn, you can retire this trigger for intercept instead. Very, very great. You know, you swap your offensive choice for your defensive taunt. Very useful. With the Polaris, we have 2 SP ones. If you've seen my pack openings, you will know that this is the case. The Limit Break 4, when this unit attacks a Vanguard, Caramelast 1 to stand 1 of your rear guards and having a +4. At the end of turn, retire that. Of course, as you can see, the main target is the Chicken, because the Chicken can retire and swap to a grade 2. So you will still maintain that, defensive capability. And when attacks get +3, so definitely it still hits through crosshair numbers and MLB numbers, and still very valuable in this meta. We play 1 Magnet Crocodile because it is an alternate Polaris option. 12k into 16k into 20k still punishes these 10k and 11k Vanguards very, very well. And 16k still hits over that crosshair number. With a 7k booster or a 6k booster, can still hit 22, 23, which is still definitely gonna help you hit over those defensive numbers. And lastly, honestly, the main mid-game ride target, School Hunter Leopold, still a very good card. It got buffed from the TCG. This card skill is Limit Break 4. Caramelast 1 to have 1 of your rearguards get the ability when retired during your end phase, call it back to the same rearguard circle. This circumvents the cost of your retire skills, like Hamusuke, and that means that you can still gain advantage using the retire skill, but you can still have that unit back in the field. Most importantly, a Vanguard rearguard skill when this unit attacks, like the Tigers, you can choose 1 of your rearguards to get +4 and at the end of turn retire. So it can still be a great rearguard supporter. 11k is a great rearguard attacker and can help you build the columns and can help you build up your Chicken to hit the numbers that you need. So before we get into the gameplay, I just want to talk about some choices that people play that I don't necessarily choose to play. Some people play the Gardening Mole, and I don't believe in the Gardening Mole because once you retire like a Hamusuke, you draw 2 Hamuskes. How many Hamuskes are left in the deck? 1. So the value of that 1 extra Hamusuke retire is quite low. The value of the Hamusuke back onto the board is quite low as a 6k or an 8k. And yes, while it may be more useful if you're using Polaris 100% of the time, you can retire the grade 2 and put it back. Generally speaking, you have a lot of cards that can help you maintain that advantage, and you don't need to rely on the Gardening Mole, and you'd rather have the Parrot to help you gain some card advantage into your hand advantage without counterblasting. Next, some options is Snapsy Otter. Snapsy Otter is a very great card. Don't make that wrong. It's just the grade 1 slot is quite tight. And while this card skill is very good, this unit does not get retired by card effects on both players' turns. So if in a Kagero meta or a Shadow Paladin meta, this would be, very, very good Otter. But because we're playing for Leopold and Leopold is my main first ride target, And Leopold at limit break basically does the same thing as Stamp C Otter, you know, basically circumventing that retire cost. I don't really see much need for the Stamp C Otter, especially when we don't play the Compass Line. And a lot of people play the Compass Line because it is 11k. Oh, what a great restand target. You know, 11k on intercept is very great. But Compass Line, well, first of all, for beginners, you know, when I started playing this Great Nature deck, it's prone for misplay because you have to choose the Compass Line skill before you choose your other retire skills, because Compass Line doesn't necessarily target that unit that you've given that +4. Secondly, Compass Line as an 11k, well, does hit numbers by itself, but it doesn't help your other rearguards hit numbers, right? Like the Tiger could help your chicken hit 14, and then the Polaris lets your chicken hit 18. The Compass Line doesn't, and while it does help you hit numbers, you don't necessarily want to use the Polaris to restand the Compass Line into a 15k beater, because you will have to retire, and because we're not playing the Gardening Mole, or because we're not playing the Otter, the cost of Compass Lines retire and the card retiring by itself is quite hefty. I mean, overall, the deck is pretty straightforward. A more budget option could be the Barcode Zebra on place top deck, a grade 2 or less is always great, but the problem is you're filtering through your grade 1 and grade 2 slot very heavily with the Hamuskes anyways, so Barcode Zebra might not be the best option, but still a very budget friendly option, and I still had a lot of success with it. You could consider playing the Self-Damager. The Self-Damager doesn't necessarily give you a lot of gains in this deck. You know, you can still play Leopold to get the retire skill without limit break. You can still play Polaris to get the 14k on Vanguard attack to hit through the crosshair numbers. You can still do stuff without limit break, and that's what makes this deck threatening. There's a strong early game advantage game, mid game multi-attack, and late game mid-game advantage game, continuing with that, and then late game multi-attack to seal off the deal. So we're going to play against Damage to Place here. Because we have 8 ride targets, we're not very uncomfortable with mulliganing our cards, and we have the Tiger, and so I do want to see my other on retire skills to plus off that. Of course, we're going first, so we can't necessarily use the skill, but luckily we did see the grade 2 Tiger, which does help with that. Drawn to the chicken, which doesn't necessarily help. We're gonna ride the Hamuske, because the Hamuske doesn't really do much here, except being cute, which is also very valuable. So here we're gonna end. There's no need to overextend here. There's no reason to play out the board. A lot of players I see, you know, but especially in the late game, they just like, you know, tune out and they start playing out their triggers, but that also tells me how many triggers left that you have that, you know, the opponent might not necessarily know. And I think that's something to know. Like, you don't need to play out everything. It does help you, but you already know that information. Just keep it in yourself for a bit. I was playing the Zeo Ride Chain, which is honestly kind of disappointing, but you know, our opponent did get at least top 3k seeing that SP Dayusha, so we can't underestimate our opponent here. See the Quelling Duckbill. Unfortunate, Quelling Duckbill is very cute. Little Duckbill as well. So we see our SP Polaris. Interesting. We're gonna play out the Tiger. We're gonna call this out. And something that I like to do is, well, you want to build your columns, right? 13k. If I put the Tiger in front, what does it make it? 17. With the 4k with the Tiger, it's 21, right? But with the 6 plus 7, it's already 13. With the 4k boost, it's 17. While, yes, our opponent hitting a trigger will circumvent us hitting. As long as we hit one, it still works. As well as it protects our Tiger as a 7k booster. While if we do it the other way around, yes, we ensure that we deal out 1 extra damage, but that means we're losing in terms of that extra unit left on my deck. And we don't want to retire the Tiger. Or lose the Tiger right now. I hope that's not too confusing. It's basically just the positioning of him, right? So here we miss a trigger, our opponent misses a trigger, which is fair. And then we attack with this. So this way our front row unit is retired. Our opponent has our Vanguard to attack only. So our opponent loses that option of attacking the Tiger. Here, something else we have to keep in mind is that you can choose to add the Hamuske first or draw. Generally speaking, if I want to see other pieces, like I don't mind hitting my triggers or anything, I would search for the Hamusuke first. And this way the chances of getting a grade 1 is lower, and the chances of getting a grade 2 or grade 3 is higher. In another case, if I am wary of drawing into the Hamusukes, or drawing into some other cards, then maybe I can consider drawing first before drawing the 2 Hamusukes. And that is also a comfortable play if you have, 3 copies left, because that means you won't accidentally lose an extra card in hand. So these little small things does accumulate, and don't underestimate, and don't always generalize your play. Don't always say draw the 2 Hamusukes first, because there are cases where it's not true, and people don't really tell you that. That's something that I really want to make sure that people get when playing this deck. So our opponent does play the Laurel, which has more synergy with the Zeal deck, since our opponent's going to be at a lower Vanguard count, which means the opportunity to stand your Vanguard is higher. As well as Zeal, with more rearguards means more power reduction. You have an incentive to fill up your board, and so you're aligning the incentives with the Vanguard Seal and the Commander Laurel, and so it does work better. Here, we're not going to ride the chicken, so we're going to ride the Polaris. Something that's a big shame is that there's no ride animation. My friend was really disappointed with that. I am too, but I guess that's how it is. Here, let's see what we can do. I want to keep the little... Fifth, 14, 18. So here with the attack of the Tiger, I can give my grade 2 Hamusuke +4, which means it will hit 18, so as long as your opponent doesn't hit a trigger, it will pass. I was considering playing the Hamusuke behind the Vanguard to hit 20k, but I just want to save my pieces for later. And here, it all works out fine. And we're comfortable with losing a front row rearguard intercept right here because we do have multiple PGs in our hand. And Zeal is known for retiring the whole board at once, especially low power rearguards. And so keeping a minimal investment on the board while procuring our offense is very important. Understanding that balance. So now we have 2 intercepts that we can use for next turn, as well as 1 flexible intercept, grade 1 booster that I can put on the bottom right rearguard circle, not necessarily invested right now. We have chicken as an option if our opponent does give us limit break for it, which they should. And with the chicken we can hit 10k and then 20k with a booster, which would be great. Let's look at Chris's emotes. So yeah, Magma Lord, as we talked about in the Daiusha video, doesn't really have a lot of synergy with the Zeal deck. But I guess, aesthetically speaking, it is a kaiju, so people would want to play it with the deck. I still disagree with it, but what do I know? So our opponent should attack the Vanguard right now to restand with the Laurel, getting the multiple twin drives. So here, ideally, we could have had Leopold to maintain the advantage with the Hamusuke retire skills, and then go into Polaris when our opponent's 4 or 5. But, you just have to play what your hand is dealt. And the best thing about Great Nature is that you have 8 ride targets. Leopold is great, Polaris is great, Chicken is great on rearguard, but you don't necessarily want to ride it. And sometimes you can still win games riding the Crocodile. So don't, give up too early. So our opponent chooses not to use the Laurel and chooses to attack with rearguard, Vanguard, rearguard instead, hitting the Daiusha, which means that the last rearguard 10+2 will hit. We hit the Polaris SP. So we're getting really lucky with the damage triggers. Opponent's retiring the Vanguard. Ooh, so then the last rearguard can hit. Very good play. So we're going to use our Cable Sheep. So we're gonna call this out. And because our opponent's 11k base, we want to pull out the Vocal Chicken with a 7k booster to hit 21. So here we're gonna attack here with 15. I suppose this is 17. I'm contemplating if I misplay, because if I put the 7k behind the Vanguard and the 6k on the behind the chicken, we would actually hit better numbers, because the chicken is 16 and then the Vanguard is 21. So I mean, misplays happen. Luckily we didn't get punished with it, but to acknowledge it is very important to your game, and I'll probably, you know, think about it more next time. Here we hope to see a trigger. We see a chicken, so that means our chicken will gain the extra power to hit over that 16k defensive. Diamond Ace. Let's see. 3 PGs. So the strength of Polaris is that you get multiple attacks that hit numbers. And yes, you get the retire, but you still have skills that mitigate that cost. So we're going to call the Melodica Cat first, because we don't have a lot left. And we're going to draw 1 because we played the Duckbill. And of course, as we talked about just now, the Plays up the Laurel. Just something else, some other information that we can procure from this. Our opponent's deck, if they choose to play the SP1 and the non-SP1, you know, generally speaking, people do like the SP more than the non-SP, and so that may mean that your opponent doesn't have, didn't place as high, and you can you know, assume certain things. I'd be wary of that, but sometimes you do that instinctively or subconsciously. But yeah, to recognize that is also important. So the Laurel connects. But overall, I think our opponent didn't play to the best of their ability. You know, they had a lot of grade 3 rearguards stuck in the front row that couldn't protect them, and you know, couldn't take advantage of my board state really well. So here, what we can do is choose to try to win or try to not lose, right? If we set up the intercepts and we attack the rear guards and we attack the Vanguard, our opponent doesn't really have a lot of options to get rid of our board, especially with the Cable Sheep here. So let's do that. There's no reason to speed up the game right now, since we are winning, since we still do have heal triggers that we can prop. So I believe that the last card is a PG, by the way, which is why I made this play. Oh, but it's not. And do we win from this? Well, you know, it ended up well. So I guess that's just a really brief Great Nature gameplay video. We just hit clan level 10. I played quite a bit of Great Nature, incomplete as it was, in my run to number 2 on ladder last season. Played it a bit more as a complete deck because the Raid Up gacha came out. Couldn't publish that because I had some technical difficulties. Just couldn't record anything. But overall, as some people would say, Mr. Pepsi Bear is an amazing card, amazing pressure, and with the advantage engine that comes with, you know, the Hamuskes and the Duckbills and the Parrot and all the really cool animals in Great Nature. It really is a pretty fun and great deck. If you enjoyed this video, do subscribe, do like the video down below. Tell me, you know, which is your favorite card in Great Nature, right? Which is your favorite art, you know, regardless of skill, and which is your favorite skill. Anyways, let me know down below which is your favorite little unit from Great Nature, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye!